G'day guys, and welcome to week 2 of the NRL off-season season review. Today we're going to be talking about the St. George Illawarra Dragons, who finished 15th. We talked about the Titans, who finished last. The Dragons came the closest to last possible, but they had an okay year. Let's get into 2019 for the Dragons. So guys, the first thing I'm going to say is the disappointment that came with the March and April. So from March to April, the Dragons actually had 4 straight wins in a row before their loss to the Sydney Roosters 20-10 at the SCG on Anzac Day. Up until this point, they beat the Broncos 24-25. Good game of footy, that one. 1-point win. Corey Norman field goal. They beat the Knights 13-12 in Golden Point. They smashed the the Bulldogs 40-4 and got a snatch of a win against Manly 12-10 before being handled that defeat. This is very disappointing because after this match they went on a landslide of losses and they lost, I'm just looking now, 7 games straight. That's right, 7 games straight after 4 wins in a row. That was very disappointing for them. But let's speak about the players. So if I'm speaking about the Dragons in their first half of the season, I mean, he played good when he got back from injury, but I think Corey Norman was fantastic. Now, for me, Corey Norman is a 5'8" and not a fullback. I don't know whether Matt Duffy deserves the role at fullback. I do like him, but there's a few things to talk about there. I thought Ewan Aitken in the centres was really good. It was Gareth Widdop's last year, so I'll give him a little bit of credit. I didn't think he was purely at his best, but he played well coming back from injury, especially a game against South Sydney Rabbitohs, which I don't think that the Dragons actually should have lost, in my opinion. Michaeli Ravalawa was fairly good as well. Zach Lomax, Tristan Saylor. Look, there's a few names from the Dragons that had great year. Cameron McInnes was probably one of the best players all year, not just from the Dragons in rugby league. He was so consistent and so good. I thought James Graham was quiet. So for me, the best players are Corey Norman. Look, I'm going to go, he only played 3 games. I'm going to put Tristan Saylor in there. I think he was great. And as I said, I think Ewan Aitken did a good job as well. I thought their forwards were a little bit soft this year, and I expect the Dragons to rise up again next year. But these are the players that performed. When I think of the Dragons and their best win for the season, it is hard because they did come second last. But for me, I can't go past the Manly snatch victory. They were very lucky to win it. What a game. 12 points to 10 over the Manly Sea Eagles. And they were at home at Wollongong. I thought it was a good game of footy. You could argue that maybe against the Broncos, after being down at half time, just checking the score now, it was full time 25-24. But at half time, this game back in March, the Broncos had the lead, and it was problem occurred with this page. Well, that's not going to load for me, so that's frustrating. But I'm pretty sure they were down at halftime. But for me, it's the snatcher victory against Manly. With the Dragons set to sign Isaac Luke, I wonder where he'll play. If Cameron McInnes, because he was a good player, will still play in the side. Whether Isaac Luke will come off the bench. He is rumoured to have signed with the Dragons. Look, I expected the Dragons to have a fantastic year. I had them top 4 for sure with that roster, but that is not how their season turned out. They had a win against the Titans, last versus second last, for their final game. They played fairly well, I think, against the Roosters at home as well, which was the debut of Tristan Saylor. And the Roosters were on fire at that period of time. Another game that I think the Dragons actually turned up was against the Melbourne Storm, where they lost 14 to 16 at Wollongong. It was around Origin time, where a lot of the Storm players were actually out of action. So were some of the Dragons. As I said, their forward pack was soft. I didn't even think that some of their, like Paul Vaughan and Tyson Frizzell, play some great footy, but I think there were some players that should have been there instead of them during Origin. But that's very critical of me. But I'm just going to say that. But overall, the Dragons, for me, they've got a good team. They should have been top four. They weren't. Their best win was probably against Manly. They should not have lost the game against the Rabbitohs. They were resilient. They finished second last. They had some good wins. I don't think the complete season was a failure. I do think that it was disappointing, but I don't think it was a failure. They had a for and against of 575 against and a for of 427 points, which is a lot better than the Titans. Anyway, guys, next up will be the Cowboys. I will try and bring that video out around the same time next week. Hope you guys have enjoyed this season recap of the St. George Illawarra Dragons. If you go for the Dragons, or if you just want to have a chat, let me know who you think was the best player, their biggest loss, their worst loss, whatever you want. Their worst loss for the Dragons this year was 100% against the Newcastle Knights. I think they even, I might be wrong, went in as favourites to this match, and boy, did the Knights put on a show and get some vengeance, 45 to 12. That's it, guys, for the Dragons. Thanks for watching.